So we're doing a bunch of bush work today, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on at the homestead. I've been running around non-stop since 6 a.m. and all the guys are doing something different actually. They've got 2 guys on the main construction of the house, and one guy is now starting on the special high tunnel that I talked about in previous videos. And Mitchell and I are doing some bush work, and we'll go around and check out all the projects we've been doing this week. Then I'm going to push this. All right, so let's check some stuff out. So I think it's been over a week since I did a last weekly update video, and we got a lot of stuff going on now. So right over here, Neil is putting the beginnings of our concrete foundation. It's not really a foundation, it's kind of a small footing and a stem wall, because we're putting this greenhouse bow over top. This is what we're working with. It's sort of a Gothic arch. So what I'm planning to do with this greenhouse is try a little experiment where it's sort of a semi-heated tunnel. So my passive solar greenhouse is my big, active passive greenhouse, but it's very warm. It's got the climate battery. Right now it's at least 20 degrees in there, and it's probably 0 degrees outside. It's snowing right now in mid-April. It's insane. But another reason for a lot of greenhouses, I mean, gardeners right now would be getting hammered if they had stuff out that wasn't covered in poly. So we want to have a lot of greenhouses on this property, and this is my sort of next tier down of a greenhouse that will have a geothermal element to it. It'll have a PEX pipe, like a radiant floor, that's heated by our wood boiler, and I'll keep it at 1 degree. So there'll be it's a double layer poly greenhouse with an insulated foundation with PEX inside that will be underneath the soil of the beds. And at the coldest times of the year, I'll just always aim at keeping that soil temperature 1 degree at the very lowest. So barely heat it, but it's enough to keep crops alive all winter. So we've officially begun on that. And there's actually a lot going on in the greenhouse. Let's go check that out. So nice and warm in here. All the greenhouse beds are now finished. This is a lot of soil. Each of these beds was 2.5 yards of soil that I scraped and sifted from our property. So there's 10 yards of soil there. There's at least another 2.5 yards and maybe a quarter or a third of a yard in that one, but I've got some stuff started to be planted out. So got that bed over there planted with some greens. I got some kale in there, some kale transplants, seeded some spinach, and I've got some lettuce plugs for that. One of these beds I just put a bunch of my strawberries in. They were getting just destroyed outside. I had them in pots, and winter came back. I remember March 24th, it was a beautiful warm day and it looked like spring was here. And about maybe it's almost been 2 weeks of this weather now, and just cold, down to -10 Celsius at night, and a high of maybe 2 or 3 degrees during the day. Absolutely insane. It's snowing right now, crazy. So I'm really fortunate to have this greenhouse, because in here I've got all kinds of stuff going on in the nursery. We've potted up our tomatoes, peppers will be potted up soon, and I've started to just seed crops in here. I've seeded carrots in here, And I'll be getting a lot more planted in this greenhouse in the next little while. And then my hope is that we'll have this greenhouse done within a couple weeks or so, because all we really have to do for this greenhouse is build this footing, this foundation, and then put our bows over top, and then it's building a greenhouse like I normally do with channel lock and wiggle wire. Be mounting a blower in there for the 2 layers of poly, but fairly simple. We've already got the beds built. Maybe let's go check those out. We'll talk about the house site in a minute, but just kind of show all these raised beds that we've built. The solar system these days is producing far more than we can consume. Even in this weather, if it's cloudy like this all day, we'll still produce 60 kilowatt hours of electricity. So it's easily more than double what I'm using. So these are all the raised beds that are going to go in this greenhouse. So these ones are a little bit different dimension. These are a 36-inch wide bed, exterior outside dimension. And what I'm doing in that tunnel, since we've got 36 feet in length, is I've made beds. This is a 16 footer, so this is 3 by 16. This is going to go together with another one to give me a 32 foot long bed. Of course, it'll be broken in the middle with that. And we've got our ready rod in there to keep our bed together so it doesn't bow out. But this is what we'll be putting in that greenhouse, and so that'll be my next stage of crops. I'll probably start seeding a lot of things in that greenhouse as well, but that's where most of my tomatoes are going to go this year. Peppers in there, and then we still have yet to develop the field. And I was going to, when it started to get warm at the end of March, I thought maybe I'll just prioritize the field production, because I am going to put a caterpillar tunnel on that field as well. But I thought I would just start prioritizing that. But since we've had this almost 2 weeks of cold, I thought, you know what, greenhouses are more important than ever. So I want to get that greenhouse going, because that'll be warmer than the other one. And so it'll get my season going quicker, and it won't, what's going on with this weather won't matter so much. So behind me we've got the construction of the house. We've officially broken ground. I don't think in the last time we did a weekly update that we had much going on there, but we've got our footing, our primary footing for the whole house is built now. They've got all the rebar tied in, rebar coming out that's going to go into the ICF blocks, which we're building the ground level of the house with. ICF is insulated concrete form. It's a styrofoam Lego piece essentially. There's 2 pieces that go together and they get tied together with a plastic tie, and then we pour concrete right into that. And so that's going to be the whole first level of the house, which is ground level essentially. And these guys have really beefed up the rebar on the back wall, which is a retaining wall, where we're going to push all this earth up. And so it's going to have a similar to an earthship element to it, with the north side all bermed into the ground. And it's a super insulated structure. It's an R40. It's a 14-inch wall with 2 inches of insulation on each side, and that insulation stays when you pour. You don't strip it off. That's what's so neat about these ICFs. But there's been quite a bit of prep to get to that point, because we had pretty much a crushed rock surface that we've put essentially a floating footing on. And you can see there's tarps in there that will keep the concrete from blowing out when we pour this. But yeah, the guys have done quite a bit of work too to lay down sand, because this footing is all going to get filled with sand once it's poured, and then the slab for the first floor of the house is going to get poured on top of that. And we're also putting a radiant floor in there as well. A hydronic radiant floor is going in there. That's all going to be connected to the main boiler on this property. So quite a bit of prep work to do. But yeah, these guys, fortunately I don't have to really manage what they're doing. I have to come in and oh, we need to discuss one thing that we might change from the drawings or whatever, things like that. But a lot of what I've been doing this week has just been running between certain things happening on the property. There's always multiple things happening at once, and I'm running between all these things and making sure everybody who's doing a different job has what they need. And so often I'm just a gopher. I'm running between getting things and making sure everybody is able to keep being productive. And that's, for the most part, what my week has been filled up with. So we're up here in the nursery portion of the greenhouse, and you can see all of our potted up tomatoes and some cannabis clones in here. Some of my early cannabis starts coming along. And I'm so glad I didn't put anything outside yet, because I was not expecting it to be this cold this time of year. But fortunately, we got enough space in this greenhouse that I could plant a decent amount of these plants in here, or the next greenhouse, and keep my season rolling along. You know, all this cold, it's just insane. We got the chickens down there, and we are about 1 week out. They can only really be in here for another 2 weeks. So next week, we're going to be building one of their coops. These chickens are going to have 2 coops, and we're going to have way more chickens than this eventually. But there's going to be 2 coops on our property, one which is a summer coop, and then one's an insulated winter coop. And so these guys and girls are going to be moving in there eventually, so maybe in the next couple weeks. And yeah, that's kind of really it for the homestead. I mean, there's a lot obviously that I didn't show. I worked on the road for the first half of my week. That seems to be an endless project, but I've got it okay enough that we can get concrete up here and sand and gravel safely. And so that was the main thing that was important. And I'm really focused right now on getting our food systems rolling, and I'm not letting the cold weather affect that, because there'll be eventually 4 greenhouses on this here. There'll be this one, the special one we're building right now. There'll be another high tunnel in the field, which is a 16 by 50, and then we'll have another smaller caterpillar tunnel that I have that just is kind of like a low tunnel. So if I have to keep my season under plastic for another 2 months, I can, which is kind of a reassuring thought considering the weather right now. So anyways, folks, we'll leave it at that for this one. But if you want to watch my daily vlogs, I'm vlogging every single day at fromthefield.tv, and I'm trying to post these every single week. I think we missed last week, but I'm trying to post these at least every week. And yeah, like, share, subscribe. We'll see you in the next video.